Hi everyone, my name is Rob Johnson. I'm the Artistic Director of Burning House and I'm the co-producer and director of Caligula. So, the play has a really interesting history. There's two well-known versions of the play. The first Camus wrote during World War II and it was published and performed in 1944. He then revisited the play over the next 7 years and the text that we're working from was published in 1949. And the reason Camus felt that he needed this time to re-examine the text and to revisit it was he felt that existentialism was essentially a flawed philosophy and he actually wasn't the celebrated exponent of it that we understand him to be now, where he felt to make a life built on a thesis of life not having meaning was flawed and would lead to the holes that would create the extreme ideologies of the 20th century, which is something that the play so vehemently opposes. So there's sort of two big themes in the play. The first comes from that first draft that Camus wrote during World War II, where it's inherently a play about how do you make meaning in your life when you live under tyranny and you cannot control your future or when things go deeply wrong for you, which feels incredibly relevant after 5 months sitting at home because we can't go outside. Then the play develops, and Camus spent 7 years watching Europe and particularly Russia as it develops in the 1940s. And suddenly he comes to this play about tyranny and he rewrites it and he makes it a tract about being deeply wary about extreme ideology from either the left or the right. And so many of the characters either centre around the pole of stoicism as a way to live their lives, or they try and understand their life through nihilism and ultimately fail. So thematically, it's a really interesting play that's about how do we live under tyranny and uncertainty in extremity, and how do we make meaning in our life, and it uses stoicism and nihilism to explore this. So there's a number of inspirations for the play, and I think the one that is actually most interesting to me is the man himself. You know, we understand Caligula as the man who made his horse senator or declared war on the sea, but he was also a man who, when he was 12, his older brother was killed by the head of police in Rome, the Praetorian Guard. His mother was exiled to an island where she starved. His other older brother was killed. His older sister was taken away into an abusive marriage. So his life was consistently scarred by trauma. And then he was given absolute unfettered power. And so the play is this incredible ball of tension about depression, and it does that so tenderly, but the person with which we're asked to empathise in that depression is a satanic rapist murderer. And that's erotic and exciting and dangerous and scary, and I love that. In terms of the aesthetics that we're deploying, Caligula himself was a big drag star back in Rome, where he would tour Italy dressed as the goddess Venus, and he would get people to fill stadiums by sword point, and they then had to watch him cavort around as the goddess of love while he sung and performed for them. And if they didn't applaud, he would execute them, which was a blasphemous thing to do in a world where blasphemy meant something incredibly taboo. So we're drawing a lot upon a drag aesthetic because it's inherent in the play and it's inherent in who Caligula was as a real person. So things like Pose and things like RuPaul have been a focal point for a lot of the design, but we're also drawing on some of the bombastic, over-the-top energy of the 80s in understanding what Rome is, that it's that sort of yuppie, schlocky, smooth veneer that hides a deeply morally corrupt underside. And we're also really interested in this show being fun, so we're drawing a lot from cabaret and from song and from rock concerts. Yeah, so there's a big pool of things to inspire us. So there's a number of really exciting challenges in the play. The first is that it's a play that has a large cast. It has 11 people in it, which really excites me. And it calls for a gigantic mirror to be suspended above the stage. So there's technical and ensemble difficulties that I relish because I love putting on big spectacles. But more interestingly, the play uses drag as this really interesting metaphor for depression. where there's a metonym of someone trying to reach outside of their own biology, but it's not loosely tied to gender. Even though he performs as a woman several times throughout the play, it's about depression, and he rages against the fact that he can't escape that. So it's going to be really interesting for us to navigate as a creative team. How do we put on this play that embraces a queer aesthetic, that relies heavily on drag to carry its message when it's not inherently about that? And how do we do that in something that is respectful, but also transgressive and innovative and dangerous in the way that Caligula was? So Caligula offers something unique to the audiences in a number of ways. Firstly, it's the first time the play has ever been performed in Melbourne, so we're tremendously excited to be doing the premiere with TheatreWorks. Secondly, it's incredibly unique in that it's a play that is a tragedy at heart, and it's Shakespearean in scope. It's about this deific figure, and it's lathered in blood and philosophy, but it also embraces life with this vigour, and it shines in this aesthetic that's about being campy, and it's about being over the top. So I'm delighted to bring this very, very modern tragedy to Melbourne in the biggest and most bombastic way I possibly can, without losing heart of the extreme tragedy that sits inside the text. So Burning House has been put on hiatus during lockdown. We had a production of Henrik Ibsen's Little Eyolf that we were going to produce in April, and of course we were going to do Caligula last month, which unfortunately neither of these plays can happen when we want to. So it's been a period of research, and it's been a period that's been really enjoyable for me because I can spend time with the script and go deep and have nice leisurely conversations with the creative team about the play. But it's also been a period of reflecting on what is theatre. You know, I've found all the time one spends staring at Zoom or trying to watch a live performance streamed unfulfilling. And there's a quote from The Seagull, which I've thought a lot about the last few months, by Trepov, and he says, if we cannot find any new forms, the new forms need to die. So I think I'm deeply committed into embracing live performance and making sure that theatre remains something about the live interaction between the body and the community.